In this video, I'm going to cover the unboxing and first use of this Bosch 6-inch random orbit sander. I'm hoping that this larger, more powerful sander speeds up the sanding process for large projects for me when compared with my Bosch 5-inch sander. Now, in order to quantify that, I've devised a little bit of an experiment that will allow us to quantitatively compare material removal rates for the 6-inch and the 5-inch sander. If that sounds interesting, keep watching. I'll include a link to the exact model I'm using here in the video description. So this set of parts that you see piled in front of me here is for a double dog crate that I'm building for our 2 new yellow lab puppies. It includes a large cherry top that will measure about 28 inches wide by over 7 feet long, and that would be quite a bit of sanding. So this seemed like a good time to upgrade from my Bosch 5-inch sander. To get a sense of the value of the project, I looked on Etsy for comparison, and I found that a furniture grade double dog crate with anything approaching the build quality I plan to use here sold for upwards of $2,000. With that in mind, it's not hard to justify the cost of a tool purchase. Now, as a woodworker, I do a lot of sanding, and as a result, this particular tool upgrade is probably long overdue. I've been hanging my nose over 6-inch random orbit sanders for a while, and looking online, reading reviews, looking in the forums, 2 sanders seem to stand out among the pack. One is the Festool Rotex sander, and the other is this Bosch sander. And while everybody who has the Festool absolutely loves it and swears by its material removal rates and dust collection efficiency, as a hobbyist, I found it hard to justify the nearly $700 price tag when the next best thing is probably this Bosch at $300. For me, particularly when you factor in the fact that I've had very good luck with the Bosch tools I have purchased, for me it was a no-brainer. In addition to the sander itself, I have ordered a number of boxes of this PowerTech 6-inch sanding discs, hook and loop, in various grits, as well as a new dust collection hose that I'll use to connect the sander to my dust collection system. So let's get into the unboxing. As you see, my Amazon driver started the unboxing process, but hopefully the sander's intact. I've got a set of operating instructions, which I have to confess, I will not read. I'm pretty sure I know how to use a sander. Got some very parts and components here. It looks like they include 1 sanding disc to get you started in 120 grit. Feels like a pretty flimsy disc. This is a handle and a front guard, piece of cardboard. So there's not a lot of packaging here. I wouldn't say it's over packaged. I also ordered one of these little connectors because I thought it would be only sold separately, and it turns out one comes with the sander, so that's good. I got a wrench, 1 bolt, the sander, and the sanding pad. I should have mentioned that over the years, I've gone through quite a number of sanders. The last couple that I remember, I had a DeWalt 5-inch sander, which I ultimately wore out. A few years ago, I bought this Bosch sander. I've replaced this sanding pad a couple of times as the hook and loop, the Velcro wears out, but otherwise it's stood up well and has kept working. So for this sander, anticipating that I'd probably have to replace a pad at some point, I also ordered a replacement pad. It looks like this pad is somewhat soft, and I've ordered a harder version, so it'll be nice to have a hard option for the pad as well. As for putting this together, what do we got here? Actually, I think when using the dust collection hose, what's the advantage of this? There's this thing. Okay, so maybe I will read the instructions. It looks like it just slips over, and the manual just shows this just slipping over and clicking in. So that's straightforward. All right, so it works out of the box. There is a guard here that looks like it just clips on, actually. I wonder how necessary that is. This strikes me as the kind of thing I will use the first time I use the sander, and will then take it off and never use it again. I guess this is handy if you're sanding inside surfaces. Oh man, there you go. Sanding inside surfaces and you don't want to bump the sanding disc up against the... Now I will probably use a different sanding disc. So I think when it comes to doing my comparison for material removal rate, I'll start the experiment with a nice coarse 60 grit disc, so remove material fairly quickly. Well, it's interesting, the hole pattern on this is sort of, doesn't really line up with the holes on the sander. These PowerTech hook and loop sanding discs with 8 holes don't line up real well with the existing holes in this multi-hole base. All right, so I think for my first comparison I might use this. Man, that's tricky. What a pain in the butt if you have to figure out how to get those little tiny holes to line up, compared with my much simpler base on my existing Bosch sander where it has big holes. They're fairly easy to eyeball lining up with the sander. That's a little awkward. I might end up ordering a new base that has an 8-hole pattern, because that's going to render dust collection wildly ineffective. As you can see, I bought a lot of this stuff too. So I think the probable solution will be to go out and find an 8-hole base for this 6-inch sander. What a pain in the butt. Okay, so for my little comparison experiment for performance, I have both sanders connected to my dust collection system. Man, I wish they would work out a standard for dust collection ports. It doesn't matter what I come up with, it always seems to involve tape somewhere in the system. Anyway, I've got both sanders configured with a 60 grit brand new sanding pad. It's not quite apples to apples. On the 6-inch I have a PowerTech sanding pad, and on the 5-inch I'm using this Diablo sandpaper that I bought at Home Depot. This says 80 grit, but this is actually a 60 grit pad. This came from a different package. I couldn't find the 60 grit package. For my experiment I have 2 squares of 5.5 inch by 5.5 inch by about 1 inch thick cherry. And I thought what I would do is have a starting weight. So this one weighs 296 grams at the start. And I will use the 6-inch sander on this one. This one weighs 302 grams at the start. And I'll use the 5-inch sander on this one. I'll use them each for a period of about, oh, let's give it a little while. Let's say I'll run the sander for 4 minutes, and then we'll weigh and see how much material is removed. In both cases, I'll have the dust collector running, so hopefully the dust collection is effective, even though the holes don't line up very well on the 6-inch sander, and we'll see how it compares. I'm curious. I have no idea what to expect here. I'll just clamp this in the end vise of my workbench, and I'll start with the 6-inch sander since I've got it all set up. Now it has 2 speeds. There's, I guess, a regular speed and a turbo speed for fast material removal. Since I want to test fast material removal, I guess I'll try the turbo speed first and see how that goes. Okay, so I actually ran that experiment for 2 minutes because I wasn't sure I would have any sanding block left after 4. Man, that thing has impressive material removal. It's a handful to hold on to. The dust collection, no great surprise since my holes don't line up. The dust collection is terrible. I'm gonna have to see if I can find an 8-hole sanding pad for this 6-inch sander. Otherwise, oof, that's awful. But material removal was impressive. Let's see how much weight we lost in the process. I should have been using a mask, but wasn't because I'm used to my sander sucking up the dust very effectively. Definitely gonna have to wear a mask while I'm using this thing until I get a new sanding pad. So let's weigh after. So we are 266 grams after. So it lost 30 grams, 266 grams after on the 6-inch. All right, so we've got on the 5-inch, we got 302 grams at the start. The dust collection will work a lot better, I know that. I don't think I'll remove anywhere near as much material using a 60 grit on the 5-inch sander, but let's find out. I also figured out that I don't know how to use my timer because I set a 4-hour timer. That was a little bit more than I wanted. This time, let's set a 2-minute timer, since that's what I did. I will put on a mask this time anyway. Learn from your mistakes, but I'd already started the experiment before. I didn't want to run off and get a mask and complicate my experiment. All right, we're masked up. Let's turn on the dust collection and give it a shot. Now, the dust collection on the 5-inch sander was certainly a lot more effective, which again doesn't surprise me because the holes on the sanding pad line up with holes on the sanding disc, which they do not on the 6-inch sander. Let's weigh after. After we have 292 grams. So huge difference. The delta for the 6-inch sander was 30 grams. The delta for the 5-inch sander was 10 grams. So material removal for this 6-inch sander versus the 5-inch Bosch sander is 3 times in turbo mode what it is on the 5-inch sander. I'm interested to try not turbo mode and see what that does for the sake of a comparison. So I guess I'll do that now. All right, so after 2 minutes more of sanding in not turbo mode, this time wearing a mask so I didn't choke on the dust. So after, we are 252 grams. So a delta in non-turbo mode of 14 grams. So turbo mode almost or more than doubles the material removal rate, but even not turbo mode is significantly faster than the 5-inch sander. So overall, my goal was to get a thing that would make sanding go more quickly for me. I think this will do it. All right, so from here we'll get the clamps off the top for the dog crate here and put the sander to use on the project I intended. Or rather, put the sander to use on the project for which I purchased it. And the first step will be to get out my card scraper and scrape off the glue, squeeze out, and then I'll use the sander to flatten the top. I'll use a coarse grit to get some of the places where I didn't get my alignment very good when the boards went together and the glue up, and then finish sand the rest. So according to my little test, this should remove material with 60 grit paper 3 times faster than my Bosch 5-inch random orbit sander. And man, I have to say, that shows up in use. This panel has some pretty significant little steps where I glued the boards together that I didn't have the alignment quite perfect. And this thing makes quick work of sanding those lips out. With a 60 grit paper, obviously I'll work through finer grits to get to my finish. I have to say that I'm a little disappointed that my 8-hole discs don't work with this multi-hole pattern. It's supposed to work with many different kinds of discs. I can tell you definitively it does not work effectively with the 8-hole PowerTech discs. I've ordered some other discs that I think should improve the dust collection. I have a couple of different kinds to try. I'll probably post an update video on that. But for now, at least, it's made my sanding much faster, which is the point of why I purchased this thing. So I'm reasonably happy, and hopefully we can figure out the dust collection in the near future. You know, I try to hate Amazon, but they make it hard. I ordered these last night, and when I woke up this morning, they were waiting on my porch. These Mirka Abranet sanding discs, which are porous, so should work effectively for dust collection. Let me find a 120 grit pad, since that's where I am in my sanding. This is a variety pack. Several of each grit, just so I could try them out. I have a feeling I'm going to like them, but let's find out how effective the dust collection is with these on this Bosch 6-inch sander. So here the puppies running around upstairs. That's who I'm making this dog crate for. But all right, so the Velcro on the pad works effectively against the back of those. Let's fire up the dust collector and see how it works. All right, that's the answer. The combination of this Bosch 6-inch sander and the Mirka Abranet porous sanding discs, very effective dust collection, seems to work really well. I'm very happy. So with that, I'll wrap up this video. Thanks for watching.